Yeah.
For all your things, Shreya.
Hello.
Hello. Shavua Tov. Good year, guten Winter.
Good
whatever
year.
you say.
Hey, Julie?
Hello. Hi, Walter.
How are you, Maria? How was Yom Tov?
Good, good.
Okay, good to hear.
We had a lot of Armenians parking by my house.
Yeah, they were out in full force, Armenia there, or whatever it is.
Yeah, because, no. You know, Israel is supporting Azerbaijan militarily. Yeah, okay. So we are on 61, Samach Aleph. We said, "Ve'ein anshe ir ktana malchim et kol ir gedola." We said if a big city and a little city are next to each other, they have to be further than 141 ames. Remember, because we said if they're within 141 ames of each other, it's considered like one city. So we said the big city people can walk anywhere in the Ir Ketana, but the Anshe Ir Ketana, if they're 2,000 ames, ends in the middle of the big city, they can't walk any further. Now, my time, isn't it because La Mishum Tahani Kalsa Midos Machatzi here? Because when they measure their 2,000 ames, it stops in the middle of the city. Vahani Kalsa Midos Machatzi. But when the big city overlaps the little city, they go to the end of the city, and therefore that's why they can walk everywhere. However, Rebbe Aidi Anshe Tani, he disagrees with the way the Baraisa said Ein Anshe. He says it's both people can travel everywhere in the city. That's if the person placed his Eruv in a city, either the little guy, the people of the big city put their Eruv in the little city, or the little city put their Eruv in the big. If you place it, then you can walk anywhere in the city. Ava moideid lo. But if, for example, you're walking, and you come and you're counting off your 2,000 amas, and it ends up in the middle of the city, then you cannot walk more than the 2,000 amas. Freik the Gemara v'lo, you cannot. I'll show you that you can. Vatnan v'lamoideid she'amru noisten lo al payim amash afilu sof midaso kala b'mara. It means when you count your 2,000 amas, you get 2,000 amas. And if it ends in a cave, you can only stop there. So the Gemara says, Sofa ir itzrachalei. The Chiddush is that if you go to the end of the city, it includes the whole city, because that was not mentioned. The Lotna. Amrav Nachman, Mandatani Anshe Lo Mishtabesh. The one who said that the people can travel to the whole city are not confused. Umandatani ein anshe lo mishtabish. Neither are confused. Mandatani anshe lo mishtabish de muklam benose. The shita that you can travel anywhere, no matter whether it's a big city, little city, is where you actually placed your aim. Mandatani ein anshe lo mishtabish de muklam b'moded. That's a case, not when you placed your aim, but you're actually counting off the 2,000 amas tchum. The chesure maxra. And there's some words missing. This is I have to understand the brisa. Anshe ir gedola mahalchin is called ir ktana. The people of a big city that's next to a little city, and the little city falls within their 2,000 amas tchum. The people of the big city can walk anywhere in the little city. However, ein anshe ir ktana mahalchin is called ir gedola. But let's say you have a little city of Downey. That's next to Los Angeles. If you count 2,000 amas from Downey, and you make it to, let's say, downtown, that's it. You can't go any further. You can't walk anywhere in Los Angeles. b'modeh. That's if he counted off the 2,000 amas. But let's say a person from Downey, Misha is turning in Los Angeles. He actually went Erev Shabbos and placed his Eruv in Downey. Or the person from Downey, placed it in downtown LA. The whole city becomes, he can walk anywhere in the whole city. It's considered part of his Daled Amas. And then beyond the city, he can go another 2,000 amas. All right.
Ernie, what happens if the city is not within? In other words, Downey is not within 2,000 amos of the city of Los Angeles.
No. Then that wouldn't work. Unless that wouldn't work.
They have to be bordering each other.
They have to be, but if they're 141 amos next to each other, it's considered one city. If there's more than 141 amos separating between the two, then this works. But Walter's correct. If another city is 5,000 amos away from this one, it doesn't have anything to do with anything.
It has to be 2,000 amos away from the other city.
Absolutely.
In other words, for this to work.
Absolutely. Rav Yosef Amar Rav Huna. Ir Sheyosheves al Sfas Nachal. You have a city that one of the borders of the city is a riverbed, and it's very deep there. So people won't go there. If there's a wall arba amos tall that creates a barrier, so then modin lo misfas hanachal. So then that's considered a real boundary of the city. You can measure from there 2,000 amos. However, in Lav, if there's no wall there, so then that side of the city is not considered the border of the city. Ein modin elon mi pesach beiso. Then each person has to measure 2,000 amos from his home. Because on that side of the city, it's not considered the city because people don't go there. Freight the Gemara Amalei Abaya Daka Arba Amos Armin Lat Allah. So you say you need a wall of Arba Amos, Maishna Mikol Daki da Alma da Arba Tfachim. It means all the other places that we learned previously, you only need a gather of 4 Tfachim. Why here do you need it to be more? Omarlei Hasom Lo Be'isa Tashmishta. There was no fear in walking. It's a straight, the Arba Tfachim is a signal that creates some kind of mechitza. But Hacha Be'ita Tashmishta, here there's a fear of travel on that direction. Rav Yosef Meno Amina Lo Tanya. Hit the Rebbe Sheyubnei Geder Yordan Lachamson. There were 2 cities, Geder, which was up on a mountain, and Chamson was down in the valley. So Rebbe permitted, and they were within we'll see, they were within 2,000 amos. Hita Rebbe Shubnei Geder Yordan LaChamson. So the people from up on the hill could go down to Chamson, but the Ein Bnei Chamson on LaGeder. The people in Geder could not go up to this other city. My time? Lav mishum dahani avudaka, bahani lo avudaka. Isn't it because the upper city made a wall, and therefore they considered this Chamson to be within their tchum? But the other city did not make a wall, so then they had to measure from their house 2,000 amos, and some parts of the other city were farther than 2,000 amos. That was the understanding. However, Kiyosar of Dimi Omar, no. There's no proof regarding this daka or not. There's a different story here. Tatrugim etarkelu b'nei Geder l'chamson. The b'nei Geder, the people who lived up on the mountain, they were like mafiosi. They would beat up, like gangs. They would beat up the Chamson people. So Rebbe allowed people to visit from Geder to Chamson, but not vice versa. I guess he was afraid that the Chamson people get beat up. Uma hitir, what does it mean hitir? Hitkin. He made such a takana. For shalom, for peace. So they wouldn't have wars. Freit the Gemara, Maishna Shabbos. So what does it have to do with Shabbos? There should be a takana that they can't visit anytime. Oh, the shchicha b'shichrus. Shabbos people had the nice schnapps. They drank wine. They were drunk.
Kiddush club.
Kiddush club. And therefore, there was more chance that they would have fights. That's why it was made on Shabbos. So the Gemara doesn't understand. I understand. If you allow the people to get it, if there was mafiosi, and you're going to allow them to go visit down in the bottom city, they're going to beat them up there as well. And for the Gemara, a very good answer. Kalba below masay shab shnin loy navach. A dog not in its neighborhood will sit quiet for 7 years without barking. That means they're out of their territory. That means when the Bnei Chamsin come visit them and get there, so they feel at home in their neighborhood, they're going to beat them up. But these people from Gedder, when they went down to Chamsin, they wouldn't beat the people up because they're out of their city. Frag the Gemara, Hashtanami Mitargane Bnei Chamsin they get there. Listen, for all these hundreds of years, the Gedder people have been beating up Chamsin people. So why aren't we worried? Why wasn't Rebbe worried if he's going to allow the Gedder people to go down to Chamsin? The Chamsin people will beat them up too. Take revenge for all those years they were being beaten up.
Ernie, he explains here that the people basically from Gedder, right, was inhabited mostly by Gentiles, and that's why they basically. I don't know if Shikra on Shabbos was the Jews. Mostly.
But it can't be Gentiles, Walter, because Rebbe is being matir the Jews to.
I'm just telling you. But I'm just telling you. Listen, they say the explanation is Gedder was an important city in the Talmudic period. It was inhabited mostly by Gentiles and was one of the 10 cities of the Decapolis. The town Hamad Gada or Hamtan, situated in the hillside below, was named after springs, right? So that's what they said. I don't know if that's true.
No,
If Rashi says that.
The Rashi doesn't say any of this. That meaning he's giving you an archaeological location. We know where these cities are. That's all. He's giving you a history lesson.
Yeah, but he is saying that it was mostly inhabited by Goyim. They may be eating up the Jews.
So, no, but there has nothing to do. These were Jews who were beating the Jews from Gedder were beating up the Jews in Chamsin because Rebbe's edict that he allowed Jews from Gedder to go to Chamsin, but the Chamsin not to go to Gedder. That's only applicable to Jews. The dinim of Tchum don't apply to non-Jews. Rashi says nothing about the issue. Now, it could be that
it's very strange, Gemara.
No, it could be that why did the people in Gedder become mafiosi? Because they learned from their Gentile neighbors to be rough people. I'm not saying that might be a reasonable understanding of the Gemara. Why did they learned from their neighbors? They became influenced to become gangsters. So Enochanami. So we understand why that is. But okay, and Enochanami, that's the Mitzias. But in terms of we're talking about the Jews who would visit from Gedder to Chamsin. So now the Gemara is asking, why aren't we concerned that the people of Chamsin are going to kill the people of Gedder when they come visit them?
Yeah.
Kula hailoi kaifiluhu. Because they were not under their thumb, so they wouldn't be able to beat them up. However, Rasafra Amar, a different shot. That there's a different reason why Rabbi permitted Gedder to visit Chamsin, but not vice versa. Because Chamsin was Ir Asui Kekeshes Havi. Was one of those rainbow cities. Remember, we learned that if the limbs of the rainbow are more than 4,000 amas away from each other, then you have to measure from each an individual person's house 2,000 amas. And it could be then that Gedder, which is up on the hill, is not Kekeshes. And therefore, every part of that city was within 2,000 amas of that city. But in the people who lived in the Rainbow City, there were people who lived, let's say, in the very far back in the rainbow. If 2,000 amas wouldn't get you to the whole city of Gedder. That's how Rav Safra explains. Rav Dimi bar Chinana Omar, Anshe Ir Gdola v'Anshe Ir Ktana Havi. It's a different shot. That one was an Ir Gdola, one was an Ir Ktana, like we've been learning. That the Anshe Ir Gdola can encompasses the whole Ir Ktana, can go everywhere there. But Chamsin was near Ktana, again, it was a near Gdola, and if you measure 2,000 amas there, you would have to stop in the middle of the city. You couldn't go the whole city. Rav Kahana Masni Hachi. In fact, that's how Rav Kahana learned. But Rav Tavyumi Masni Hachi. But Rav Tavyumi learned differently. That Rav Saf of Rav Dimi Bar Chinana, Chad Amar Ira Asoike Kashasavi. This was that one of them said that Chamsin was a rainbow city. The same, just a different mandomim who said those halachas. Mishnah. And this is the Mishnah that our Gemara was quoting. Anshe Irgdola, Mahachin is called Irktana. The Anshe Irktana, Mahachin is called Irgdola, right? It doesn't say Ein Anshe Irktana. That's what we were learning before when Rav Idi said Anshe Anshit Tnani. And not one of the sides could go and the other sides couldn't go. This Mishnah shows they both could go. Keitzad, in what case? Because it's like we said, it's when they place the Eruv, the Nasan Seruva Birktana, like we said, down in Los Angeles, or Birktana, Nasan Seruva Birkdola, Mahalachas Kula V'chutzla Pai Mama. Then you could travel anywhere in the city. Rabbi Kiva Oimer, Ein Lo El Mimkom Eruva Al Pai Mama. They say, Rabbi Kiva argued, you don't get to walk everywhere in the city. Where you laid the Eruv down, you can go 2,000 amas. Rabbi Kiva said to the Chacham who argued with him, if you put an Eruv in a cave, we don't measure the Alpaim Amma from the end of the cave. You measure it from where you put the Eruv. They said, yes, that's only if there were no people dwelling in the cave. If there were people who lived in the cave, no. Then you measure the 2,000 amas from the outskirts. So comes out that if you have a cave and you have above the cave, there's more leniency for the inside the cave because people live there. Up above the cave, they don't live there. So if you laid your Eruv on top of the cave, you'd only be able to measure 2,000 amas from the Eruv itself. But from the bottom of the cave, you would be able to measure your 2,000 amas from the two ends of the cave, which gives you more distance to walk. However, that's up if you were laying your Eruv. But let's say somebody is traveling from a different city and he's counting off 2,000 amas. And he ends up finishing his 2,000 amas in the middle of a cave, then he can't go any further. That's going to be the machlokas between Rabbi Kiva and the Chacham. If a person made his domicile in a ruined city, there are no people who live there. The Chachamim say that whole area is considered like Arba Amos, and you measure your 2,000 amas from the outskirts of that city. That's if he physically was there with his body, Bein Hashmoshes. Let's say though he sent a shaliach, and they only placed their eruv there. Then you can only measure from 2,000 amas from where you place the eruv and not the whole city. Rabbi Lozer Oimer makes no difference. Echad Shavas, whether he actually spent the time there, or Echad Iniach Mahalach Kula v'chutz l'pay mama, you get to measure 2,000 amas from the outskirts of that city. Meitzvei, I'll ask you a kasha from our Mishnah. Armelin Rabbi Kiva. That if you place an eruv in a cave, that you have to measure from the eruv. Armelo Amasai, but that's only when Bisman She'en B'Diyurim. That's if there's no dwellers in the cave. Then you have to, so this is the kasha. Because how could the Chacham allow us, if they were in a Chareva place, to measure from the outskirts? It seems from the Mishnah that we learned, you also have to measure it from the place of the Eruv. Right? But you're a moidelay. The Chacham mid mitra bekiva. And for the Gemara, my ein ba diurim, ein a reuya ladira. It's completely broken down. Nobody could live there. So that's a different halacha. But let's say it was not completely broken down, but there happens to be no people dwelling there, then you'd be able to measure from the outskirts. Torshma, come in here a raya. Shavas ba'ir. Let's say he physically, his body was present there, bein hashmoshes. Even if it's in the city, afilu higdola kan tochya, even it's as big as Antioch, which was a big city. Or b'ma'arara afilu hikimar tzidkiyahu melech Yehuda. Now, Tzidkiyahu melech Yehuda, in the time of Nebuchadnezzar, he built a big cave so he could escape from Yerushalayim. So it's a big cave. Mahalach is kula v'chutz l'payim. Whether the big city like Los Angeles would be considered Dalet Amos for him, and yet then he gets 2,000 Amos from the outskirts of the city. Mahalach is kula v'chutz l'payim. So Tani ir dumi demara. So it compares a city to a cave. And mama ara chareva af ir chareva. But so that's just like a ma'ara has no dwellers. So that heter is only when you have an uninhabited city. And v'shavasin. And it's only when he spent with his body there. Avaliniach lo. But if you laid the eruv, it wouldn't work. Now mani. Now who is that opinion like? Ilem Rabbi Kiva. Ma'ir chareva filu yeshiva nami. Rabbi Kiva doesn't allow even if it was dwell. El lav rabbanon. The time at the shravasin avaniach lo. So you see, the Chacham do not agree with Rabbi Lazar who said echad Shabbos ve'echad iniach. It's against Rabbi Lazar, this Torshma. So the Gemara says, "La, don't be medayik the way you're medayik. Lo tema ir dumya de ma'ara. Don't compare the city to the ma'ara. Ela ema ma'ara dumya de ir. You have to compare the cave to the city. Ma'ir. What is the definition of a city? Yeshiva, people dwell there. Of ma'ara, we're talking about a cave which is dwelled in. And we're going like the sheet of Rabbi Kiva, the Amar, Ein lamim kol meruv ela pai mama. Uvishabbos moidi. He admits that that's only if you laid your eruv down. But if you spent your Shabbos there, you'd have the whole cave, and you could measure the 2,000 amos from the outskirts. Freak the Gemara, how can you tell me that it's a cave that's got people? Now, the Ma'aretz at Kiyau, there were no people there. Only the Melech was allowed to go there. So it can't be an example of diurin. So the end for the Gemara, Kima'aretz at Kiyau, v'lo Kima'aretz at Kiyau. In some ways, it's like the cave of Tzidkot. In other ways, it's not. Kima'aretz at Kiyau, regarding Gdola, it's a big cave. V'lo Kima'aretz at Kiyau, the Ilo Asam Charev of Hach Yeshiva. Right, his cave didn't have people, but here we're talking about a cave that had people. Mar Yehuda livnei mavrachasa. Mar Yehuda found the kids of Marvrachta, the komoisfer vayu beveknish to the beaguver. They placed their eruv in a shul. Move the eruv all the way to the wall of the shul. You want to be able to walk everywhere in the shul. We might have a problem, only be able to go to the place of the Eruv. Nobody holds of Rabbi Kiva that you only measure. We're makel by Eruv. And you're allowed to go, if it ends in a physical structure like a shul, you're allowed to walk everywhere in the shul.
By the way, Ernie, the cave of Tzidkiyahu, they say that it was really a man-made cave. It wasn't a natural cave.
Yeah, it was a tunnel. I'm sorry, it was a tunnel that Tzidkiyahu built as an
escape.
It
was 9,000 square feet when he ran away by himself. So it was a different getter of cave.
Right. It's like a tunnel. New Perek Shishi. Mishnah. Now, this introduces, we're going to deal with the concept of Eruv Chatzeros. Let's just remind ourselves. We have maybe, let's say, 3 houses that open up into a Chatzer. Now, a Chatzer is Rosh HaYachid, a Bayis is Rosh HaYachid. Why can't I carry from one Rosh HaYachid to another Rosh HaYachid? Halachas on Shabbos prevent us from carrying from Rosh HaYachid to Rosh HaRabim, and we're not allowed to go from Rosh HaRabim to Rosh HaYachid, and we can't carry Daled Amos Rosh HaRabim. But I can go from Rosh HaYachid to Rosh HaYachid. So Chazal made a gzeira that if there are multiple different owners of houses that open up into a joint chutzner, I'm not allowed to carry from my house into that chutzner. It looks too much like I'm carrying from Rosh HaYachid to Rosh HaRabim because this chutzner is owned by multiple people. So they made a takana called Eruv Chatzeros in the time of Shlomo HaMelech, that each person would donate a loaf of bread, or they would donate money and they would buy 1 loaf of bread, and they would put that loaf of bread into one of the houses of that chutzner. And it becomes as if the chutzner and all the houses belong to one person.
One person.
And therefore, it's not multiple people there. It's just one person, one house owned by one person. And therefore, everyone can now carry from the house into the chutzner. Now, we're going to, what if a Jew is not around? Let's say he's in China. So everyone has to participate. If one of the Jews doesn't participate, the Eruv doesn't work. So there's something called bittul reshus. The person could be mevatel his reshus in the chutzner, and then so there's an act of bittul reshus that the Jew has to do, and then then everyone could carry from their house into the chutzner if they got the bittul reshus before Shabbos. What if a non-Jew lived with them? One of the houses that empty into the chutzner is owned by a non-Jew. So there's no bittul reshus by a non-Jew. There's something called schiras reshus. They could rent from the Gentile his reshus in the chutzner. Then they could use the Eruv Chatzeros. So with those introductory comments, I think we can understand the Mishnah better. Hadorim anochri b'chutzner. So you're living emptying into a chutzner. One of the houses is owned by a Gentile. Oh, let's say it's another Jew who doesn't follow rabbinic law, like a Kusi. Right? A Kusi, they were Jews. They had converted. So later on, we rejected their conversion. And then while they were Jews, they were also not good Jews because they didn't follow the rabbinic law. So hareza oisra alav. So the goy or the Jew who is not moide be'eruv prohibits the other Jews from using the chutzner unless you do schiras. Ad sheyiskar hemen reshus sheyesh lo b'chutzner. Rashi says until you rent from either the Kusi or from the Gentile his portion that he has in the chutzner. So the reisha of the Mishnah implies that, let's say it was just you and another non-Jew. He would still asher you. According to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, no. It's got to have at least 2 Jewish houses and a non-Jew for there to be a problem. They have to asher on each other. And when they make an Eruv, then the goy is a problem. But on one single Jew, a non-Jew does not prohibit. That's the sheet of Eliezer ben Yaakov. Amar Gamliel, Ma'aseh b'tzduki echad. Remember, the tzdukim there was great sectarianism during Bayis Sheni between the Prushim and the tzdukim. By the way, the tzdukim, there were a lot of Kohanim who were tzdukim, A lot of the wealthy people were tzdukim, the doctors, the professionals. Why? Because it seems that there's a connection between the tzdukim and Hellenism, right? Alexander the Great died 320 BCE, and from 320 to 200 BCE, they did not push Hellenism in Palestine. But Antioch Epiphanes, 185 BCE, that began a change in the Seleucid. The Seleucid Empire was ruling over Palestine, and the Ptolemies ruled in Egypt, and Seleucids was in Syria and Palestine. And then, because three generals in Alexander the Great, when he died, he was like 27 years old or 33 years old. He died, three generals divided the empire. Ptolemy took Egypt, the Seleucid general took Syria and Palestine, another guy took, Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, because remember, Alexander the Great had gone all the way to India. So that's how they divided up the Alexandrian Empire. First 100 years, they did not spread Hellenism. But 200 BCE, about the time of the Hashmonaim, 185 BCE, they began pushing Greek ideas and thoughts into the neighboring areas. And of course, Aristotle, Plato, science, Archimedes, Palestine, especially the upper classes, were very much taken by the new intellectualism of Greece. So the basic concept of the Tzdukim was to reject Torah Shabbal Peh. The Greeks had, the Septuagint had been translated in Egypt around that time into Greek. So they all accepted Torah Shabbat, but as the reformers and the conservatives in our own time, from Germany, it started with the Enlightenment. Moses Mendelssohn, as they were exposed to the Enlightenment and to general knowledge, they said, well, the rabbinic law is suspect because the rabbinic law is not divine. So this was this debate between the Tzdukim and the Prushim. And so the Tzdukim didn't accept Torah Shabbal Peh. The laws of Eruvin, like we said, Shlomo Melech developed the dinim was not given in the Torah. It's a rabbinic law developed by Shlomo Melech. So, Ma'aseh b'tzduki echad shahayadar imanu b'mavu b'Yerushalayim. So Rabbi Gamliel was the son of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, who was the Nasi at the time of the Churban by the Romans, 70 CE. He is one of the two Harugei, when we read about the Asara Harugei Malchus on Yom Kippur, the two major figures are Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel and Rabbi Shmuel Kohen Gadol. So that Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel was the father of this Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Gamliel, the son of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, moved to Yavne, became, after Vespasian granted Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai the permission, Tein li Yavne v'chachamea, Rabbi Gamliel became the Nasi in Yavne. So that's this Rabbi Gamliel. Remember, Rabbi Gamliel was the son of Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, who was there, the Nasi, until the Churban. So certainly Rabbi Gamliel lived in Yerushalayim. He remembered a certain Stuki. The Omar Lanu Abba, Rabbi Gamliel is recounting his father, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, told him, Maharu v'hotzius hakelim lamavui. Quickly, use our chotzer, take something out of our house into the chotzer. Ad shelo yotzi v'yesra aleichem. He was concerned that this Stuki will quickly start using the chotzer, even though he was mevatel the reshus. But once the Stuki would, let's say, carry something from his house under the chotzer, it shows that he's going back on his bittul reshus. So once you use it, it's done already. That means if you use it first and he was mevatel reshus, then he gives up his right to use it anymore. So he told us, make sure you quickly bring your kelim in there. Rabbi Yehuda Omer b'loshen acher, ma'aruv asut tzarcheihem b'mavui. Actually, you use the mavui instead of the chotzer because it was shituf mavuas. It's the same thing before he asers it. Okay. Do you mind if I teach another blot?